So many times, people ask me, who's going to speak at such and such a time? And if I say, for instance, if I say, Dorothy Cole will be speaking, second speaker this morning, what's she going to speak about? I say, Aurapathy. Then they say, what's Aurapathy? And I said, come and hear her speak if you want to know what it's about. You want me to give you a seminar on what's coming up? I have so many phone calls. Who are you going to have speak? What they're going to talk about? 20 speakers, and I spend an hour telling everybody who's going to talk. Or Dorothy Cole has developed a technique, a system that has been enormously helpful to a lot of people, either in person or from a distance. To a lot of you, it will be new. So from now on, you're going to learn about what is and why we do Aurapathy. Welcome, Dorothy Cole from Beaverton, Oregon, this morning, please.
Good morning, thank you. And thank you, Dean, for that lovely introduction. It's a real pleasure to be back. I spoke to Global Sciences in April, made a lot of friends here, and I'm really delighted to be back here in Denver. I'm a spiritual healer, and I don't know what that means. I came to this profession kicking and screaming, and I don't really understand why it happened, but I will tell you how it happened. Let me start with a little bit about my background. I grew up in, the American dysfunctional alcoholic family. And as an infant, I was sexually abused by somebody outside the family. Talk about psychic attack. I had a lot of trauma in my childhood, and my family just wasn't wise enough to know how to help me with all of that. And then as an adult, I figured out that some things were really out of balance, but I couldn't get a handle on it. My family my parents described themselves as agnostic and atheist, anarchist and communist. The truth is they're really liberal Democrats, so it's a very confusing upbringing. Then as I moved on in my career, I wanted to teach, and I started teaching high school biology. I have 3 college degrees, 2 bachelor's and master's, and I've earned half my doctorate in curriculum and instruction. I also had 2 wisdom teeth. I figure that qualifies me for a half-wit. I got my honorary doctorate of divinity from the Universal Life Church, so you now can call me doctor, please don't. But I figured, that all of the things that I've experienced in my lifetime brought me to this point. I was trained as a scientist, and being raised as an agnostic, you can imagine coming around to saying I'm a spiritual healer was quite the quantum leap for me to make. And I didn't do it voluntarily. Over the course of my life, I've been, I was a college teacher, high school teacher. I've been doing computer training for several years. And in my lifetime, I have had 10 car accidents. And I don't think it was government agents. What was interesting about this is that I was never, I was the only one ever hurt, except for the last accident I was in. And I was always the victim. I was usually stopped at a stop sign or a stoplight, and I got hit. Now, what kind of energy am I drawing to myself to do this? I had no idea what that concept meant years ago, but I do now. And it's part of what we talk about when we create or manifest things around us. And I obviously was manifesting some hard lessons here. The last car accident I had was almost 4 years ago in Beaverton. I got hit 4 times on the freeway. An osteopath later described that when you get hit that many times, it's your life force goes whammy. It flies out, flies back, goes out to the sides. I didn't get to her for 3 months after the accident. She said if she'd seen me in the first 72 hours, she would have been able to heal me a lot faster. I didn't break any bones. Nothing was bleeding. Even the taillights and headlights on my car were not busted. So what I had were soft tissue injuries, big time, and a closed head injury. I was so injured I didn't know I was. And all the stuff around me looked like I wasn't hurt bad. What happened is it shut down my left brain, and I could not think my way out of a paper bag for over 2 years. what I did do was start to go inward, and my right brain opened up, and I became more intuitive, more aware, and things started to change in my life. And I had to do a lot of self-assessment in this about what was this all about. But I figured the number 10 car accident was God's message to me. He kicked me in the butt, hit me on the head, and said, I want your attention, woman. You're off path, and we're going to get you on path, and we want you to become a spiritual healer. And so that's where I am today. But as a scientist, agnostic, I mean, this was hard going for me. There's a club up there they talk about. It's called the Stubborn Club. I'm a charter member. I had one client call me. He said, oh, I can relate to the Stubborn Club. He says, I'm in the Stupid Club. And I said, how's that? And he says, well, he said, I tangled with a semi on my motorcycle. Well, later when he called me to formalize an appointment, which I can do over the phone as well, he said, I said, well, why did you say you were in the Stupid Club? And he says, well, he'd had 10 car accidents, all of them on the motorcycle. So we figured we as a charter member. Let me start with telling you a little bit about what I understand spiritual healing to be about. I have been asked if I'm a religious spiritual healer, and I would say no. And I've been asked if I'm a psychic spiritual healer, and again, I would say no. I don't see myself as a psychic, although I'm a very intuitive now. I don't see auras. I don't see the colors of them. I don't fluff them. I don't do a lot of stuff I hear people talk about with auras. I have a very down-to-earth approach to Aurapathy. And we coined the term to tell you about Aurapathy as the pathology of the disease. I'm going to talk to you about pathology of aura work. Can we dim the lights a little bit to show the slides here? Now, what happens when we clear auras in spiritual work is, this is the name of my idea about how I work. I'm out to heal anybody who wants to be healed. So healing for all. Let's go to the next slide here. I'm a holistic healer. That means that when I work with people, I assess mind, body, and spirit. Now, I do have a bachelor's equivalent in psychology. So I do a lot of counseling with people. And I'm looking at mind, body, and spirit. Let's look at the next slide. But most people don't understand that there's a little more to this dimension of healing than just mind, body, and spirit, because we also have to deal with our emotions. So our mind and body really operate here in the third dimension. And then our emotions operate in the fourth dimension. And then our spiritual selves, our higher selves, our divine selves would be in the fifth dimension here. Principle of manifestation that's outlined in one of the books I brought with me for those of you who are interested in a spiritual quest. This book is called Living with Joy, and it's a workbook. It's one of the funnest things I've ever done. It's part of a three-part trilogy, Living with Joy. And what the trick on manifestation in your life here is that she talks about here, and then was later in the book called Conversations with God, is that we have power of thinking, and what we think we create with. So when you have a lot of creative energy and you get real excited about something, you let that go to the universe. So it goes here from your mind up to spirit, to your higher self, and then it comes back and you get the messages through your emotional body, which is your heart, your intuition, your sense of, you get guided or sense of where you're going with that. And you've all probably had that experience in your lifetime. You understand that process. Well, that is a basic principle of manifestation in the spiritual community. The problem is that some of us will think positive thoughts like, I want a big, brand new red sports car, and we send that energy out, and then we promptly negate it with, I can't afford it. And so we confuse the spirit world all the time. So you have to be clear about what you ask for, and then stop all your negative thinking, because you won't manifest what you want. It just doesn't work that way. Okay? Let's look at the next slide here. Now, in Aurapathy, what I do, and I'm going to be brief with you here because in the workshop I'll go into more details, but they're basically 7 areas, or I call densities, of the aura. The aura is an electromagnetic field around your body. Part of it's interior to your body, part of it's exterior. First thing I examine or look for are earthbound spirits. Edith Fiore is a psychologist in California. She wrote the first book on this called Earthbound Spirits. And her theory is that these earthbound spirits attach to our auras and bring into you their thoughts, desires, diseases, compulsions, beliefs, all of that. So sometimes you're feeling blocked. That's what you're getting. You're carrying this energy. When I worked with her and I was a patient of hers, what she did was she determined that I had 16 earthbound spirits on me that smoked, and I was smoking, didn't want to smoke, couldn't figure it out. cleared the spirits, and I stopped smoking, and the desire to smoke left. Very powerful. Another day, earthbound spirits, by the way, hang out in your doctor's offices, in cemeteries, and hospitals, but they're all over. We do pass them around like colds. Drunvalo-Melchizedek says that our aura goes out 55 feet, so some of you are sitting in my aura right now, and I'm sitting in yours. Yours may not be as healthy as mine. It's all right, I'll take care of you. So the earthbound spirits, when they attach to, they create these problems, and you can release them through a process I do, and it's a visualization. I actually now have developed 3 ways to clear auras, and I'm going to do private appointments for those of you who'd like to do that. In my workshop, however, I will clear the auras of the group, and then I'm going to teach you how to do it for yourself. You can do this yourself. You don't have to be a spiritual hero or mystical person. You can be just anybody. This is your chance to learn how to do this. And what's great about the benefits of clearing this kind of stuff off of you is because you then begin to know who you really are. I want to focus the attention on discarnates for a minute. These are earthbound spirits that cause violent behavior or, in severe cases, suicide. It's like a spectrum here. I treated a 12-year-old boy last year who had a discarnate energy. This kid had already been expelled from the public schools, was under heavy medication. He was in a psychiatric hospital school going home in the evenings. And what happened to this kid was one day he pushed a bookcase over on a teacher. Now, my friend, the cab driver, has taken this kid back and forth, had picked him up a couple times, heard him talk about this. This boy did not remember ever doing any of the violent acts he was accused of. Think about that. And so he told me, he said, I must be really mentally ill to do this stuff, and I don't know it. We released this discarnate off of him, and his behavior completely changed. He did not have any more problems. The state had already taken him away from his family, by the way, by the day I found him. They just gotten that news. But he was put into a group home for 3 months. His behavior changed so radically that he was home again, and he was doing fine. Then he called me this spring, and this is not in my papers, but this is a new field I'm working with, is that he called me and he says, I'm out of control, there's something on me again. So I went over to see him, and this time we discovered a demon. This demon had been with him for 7 lifetimes, 377 years. And again, it would take control of him. He picked up one of the girls in his neighborhood, made fun of him, some silly comment. He picked up a rock like this and hurled it at her. Fortunately, he missed. When his parents said, you know, what do you think you're doing? He says, I don't know. Now that sounds, I'm sure to you, really bizarre and out there, but let me think this one through. How many of you have ever lost your temper? Some of you are lying. Okay, and you know what we say when we lose our temper? I don't know what came over me. Think about that. Happens to all of us, okay? So I really think the spiritual quest for all of us is to have some balance in our lives, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that we stay out of fear and we stay in love. Now, I'm finding in marital relationships, this is really fun. I clear a couple, and the wife will call me back and she goes, my God, you have saved my marriage. She said the other day, Charlie was about to lose his temper, and all of a sudden he stopped and said, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't need to. So I thought that was pretty exciting, that you can shift your thinking and your feeling about what you're doing after you clear an aura. Think about it. You got all this static in your aura affecting you in negative ways. It goes. So that's what we do. We clear this out. Now, let's go to the next slide here. As I progressed through my practice, I found that Aurapathy has a lot more to do. It's a lot more simple. It's not just a simple clearing of the aura. It's clearing a lot of different energy fields. One of them here is called a negative vortex. Negative vortex is a channel underneath you of like a whirlpool of energy. And if yours is negatively charged, what happens is it manifests, your life is not being supported in positive ways. And so we find people have problems with their careers, their relationships, their money, their health, and we change their vortex and things start to shift in a positive way again. We all need all the help we can get, right? We also do something called psychic disconnection. What I do is I I found that after I cleared people's auras, they became a little too sensitive to the thought energy around them. You see, we are magnificent beings as humans. We're just a little limited in our thinking. But what happens is that our thoughts have such tremendous energy, we send it out to each other, and if it's a negative thought, it's like a psychic attack. Although most of us don't think of it that way. I mean, it can be just, you know, your best friend can say to you, "You look dreadful today." Zap. Okay? Now, when I was going through my spiritual emergence, I had this problem with some of my friends who were either jealous or envious about what I was doing or afraid for me. And so I kept getting these psychic thoughts at me that were negative, and I'd have to clear those out. So that's the thing we'll do in the workshop. We'll show you, we'll do that, we'll clear out the slate so all the negative thoughts of anybody you've ever known gets wiped out, clear the slate, and then you'll show, by showing you the process, you'll know how to do it for yourselves in the future, and you can ward this off. I came in yesterday and somewhere got a psychic attack in this building. I don't blame anybody for this one, but it happens sometimes. You know, there's negative thoughts around here, and you just need to learn how to ward them off. You can protect yourselves. You can empower your own healing in this process. Just one more thing here. Quick on, I do soul retrievals. For some of you have heard of that. I also do, when I teach you to clear your aura, I'm going to teach you to connect through your higher self using a human pendulum. Human pendulum is, for those of you who are dowsers, you call it body dowsing. And it's a very simple process. We ask your higher self a question. If the response is yes, your body gets nudged forward. If the answer is no, you get pushed off to the side. And if it's a maybe, you'll get pushed on either a diagonal or a ring, a circle. Generally, some of you get programmed differently, but it's a way for you to get direct answers from your higher self. Very potent and powerful process here. We also make sure we clear any blocks to your access to your higher self, teach you then how to clear yourself and ask for sacred space protection so that you can get truthful answers. Let's go on. Another aspect of my work is working with the body, and we discovered a process that was originally written about in a book by Callahan called Why Do I Eat When I'm Not Hungry? And then Master or Divine Intervention helped a friend of mine and I modify this, but it's called the Aqaba, and we tap 10 parts of the body 4 times to release things, and you're repeating the negative phrase of whatever you want to use. It's a very, very simple process. And it's very exciting. We've been doing work with this friend of mine, Carmen, and I have done a lot of our own spiritual opening this way, and we also do very fundamental things like clear allergies for people. I had candida and got allergic to almost every food on the planet. I use the Aqaba to wipe out the allergies so I don't have to worry about the food I eat anymore. I want to show you in a minute a picture of some blood cell work that we did that was so astonishing. I have to tell you, all of us were shocked when this occurred. I went to a center in Portland area. A friend of mine does no, thanks, that's all right. That does the dark cell blood analysis. Have you heard of this or seen this? They do it for enzyme and nutritional counseling stuff. Okay, what we did was we went in, when they take a drop of blood, put it on a slide, and then goes into a microscope, and then it's projected through the computer. And I said, well, if you guys, before I clear your auras, let's do a before and after, see what we get. We'll see if there makes any changes. So we did this with his wife. We got a blood sample, and what happened was this condition showed up. They were horrified. I looked at it and said, I wonder if we could treat that. I asked the masters if I could do it. I did it with the Aqaba, was told in 10 minutes the integration would occur. We took a second blood sample, and there was a change. Last February, we got the photographic equipment, and I duplicated the process, and I have the pictures to show you this. This is so exciting. Let's go, Evelyn, thank you. Now, this picture on the left here is, the black is the blood plasma, and then the white are the red blood cells. And what's happening with the little spark, little dots, is the digestion process is going on here. The condition here, when the blood cells pile up on each other, it's called erythrocyte aggregation, and it impedes the flow of oxygen through the person's body. So this is what we did. In this case, the woman was a 78-year-old woman. I had never met her before. And we did this process at 3:15 in the afternoon. We took the first, on Valentine's Day, we took the first slide here. And then 20 minutes later, if you look over to the right, you'll see all the cells are broken apart. None of them are clumping or on top of each other. Here is photographic proof that spiritual healing or energy work works. Second slide for us. You can imagine, you know, four of us when we first saw this, we were just stunned, absolutely stunned. And I thought, well, God gave me a gift. I can talk to scientists about spiritual healing. And now this case is a 62-year-old man. The white blocks you're seeing are actually white blood cells, and they're in the process of exploding or dying. That's their normal process here. Again, first condition here is erythrocyte aggregation. So we did the slide. In this case, it was at 2:12 in the afternoon on the 14th, and 10 minutes later, we took the second slide, and you see most of the cells, again, have broken out completely. There is no overlap. Now, the technician tells this volunteer, he says, you know, you've got problems with your gallbladder, your liver, and you're not processing refined sugars very well. And then he pointed to the pictures and said, you see these little moon shapes and donuts inside the cells? These are indicative of these problems. And I had been learning to clear auras and evolved to clearing organs for people and getting disease releases. I jumped in and said, oh, we can take care of that. So I cleared his liver, his pancreas, and gallbladder. Look at the third picture. This is a half hour later. If you move over there, you'll see all of the slides in all the rings are completely empty. There's no little moon shapes anymore. We were stunned because this was our first confirmation that the aura work also works. So we have validation here for two. Now, I'm going to show you one more of these because I've been teaching people, and I have some students who are learning both the Aqaba and Aurapathy. So in April last year, just prior to coming to Global Sciences, we got 12 volunteers. I had my students come in, and this is the kind of result we got. Again, erythrocyte aggregation here on the left. This is a 45-year-old male. I had worked on his aura over a year before. He was having a non-absorption of nutrients happening, a gallbladder issue. One student did the Aqaba work, the other one did the Aurapathy. This is 20 minutes later, and you see here the changes in the cell structure. See how clean and healthy they look. Isn't this exciting? I am so thrilled with this. Let's go on. Since I was trained as a scientist, I like to bridge science and spirituality, and so I really felt that this was a gift to do that. Another aspect of my practice is to work in spiritual response therapy. This is a system that was designed by a Christian minister up in the Seattle area. His book is called Soul Recreation. The bookstore has it back here. And his name is Robert Detzler. And he really taught me what multidimensional beings are about, that we are all multidimensional. And he says that each of us operate with less than 1% of our soul energy at any given time. That in fact we are out there simultaneously serving in multidimensional capacities in other worlds, living what we call our past lives and our parallel lives and our future lives. We're also acting as spirit guides for other people or guardian angels. If we're highly evolved, we may even be esteemed as a god of another planet. Are you ready for this? This book reads like a federal handbook, personnel handbook. It's incredible the number of roles we have out there that we play, apparently, to his work. What his therapy really is about is working out discordant energies from those previous experiences that we've had. For instance, if you've been an alcoholic, if you're an alcoholic or have an alcoholic in your family, at one point you brought that discordant energy into you, and you've carried it forward lifetime after lifetime till you resolve it. And that's kind of a stretch for people. But what happens is you clear this, and their behaviors will change. They will be freed up tremendously from clearing these things out. One of my more dramatic cases happened on a personal level recently. Let's go to the next slide here. I developed, in relationship to his work, another process that uses the spiritual response therapy as part of it. I call it a heart process because it's really taking issues to the heart. And we're working through various levels here of clearing all the blocks. There can be mental, emotional, physical, psychic, and spiritual. We clear the lifetimes, whether they're present, past, parallel, or future. We look at clearing hexes, curses, and spells, and then it runs a little deeper. And when I was here in April, I showed people what this was about. We also go in and find if there are guardians or sentries holding the hexes, curses, and spells, get them released, and then find out if there's a dark force energy. Now, when I came into the Midwest first and then out here to Denver, I wasn't prepared to talk publicly about dark force energies. I thought everybody'd boo and hiss and throw stones at me because I sound so silly. But actually, I found that people in this part of the country, which were much more open to this information than my compatriots on the West Coast, and that they were eager to hear about this. So I want to share with you what heart therapy looks for, because we can disempower dark forces. I'm not sure I can teach that to everybody, but people who are willing to stay out of fear, like our warrior friend Phil yesterday who talked, and others who've said you have to stay out of fear, you can learn to disempower, not fight back, but disempower evil forces. Let's go to the next slide. This next blood sample was the first woman who came into our volunteer process. I had never met her before. I talked to her on the phone, and we had this condition here. I called it erythrocyte aggregation again, but it's actually called ROLU, where the blood samples look like slinkies here. And what happened was the students worked on her, nothing happened. I worked on her, nothing happened. She was the first person in this day. I was going, oh, come on, please, let me have some evidence that my students can do this work. So nothing worked, and we had her there all afternoon. She was such a sport because she sat there, getting her finger pricked every half hour here to go through this. So I asked the masters, I said, okay, is this where you want me to apply heart therapy? So I did, and I went through that whole run of mental, emotional, physical, psychic blocks, and I had one of the students you did the human pendulum to test whether the block was there, and we went through this whole process all the way out, found dark force energy. We cleanse, clear, remove, dissolve, and annihilate dark force energy, and then disempower the dark force. And there's the result. 20 minutes later, clear cells again. Well, that was pretty mystical to me. And again, it's like, well, how do I describe what I do and make people understand it's okay to do this kind of work? I don't know that I can. I can just tell you, you're hearing a lot of speakers with a variety of threads in their discussion. Have you heard this today and yesterday? You're hearing people talk about multidimensional aspects from UFOs and the government and all of these other sources. Well, I'm coming in from a spiritual bent here, giving you another perspective of how we need to expand our reality. The other day, Phil talked about our capacity, our brain capacity is at 10%. Well, that's true if you're stuck in the linear model of the third dimension. You're probably only using 10% of your brain, being ruled by your ego. But most of us are expanding beyond that because we are becoming more intuitive, more psychic, more aware of things around us. We're having sensations in our bodies and we don't know what's going on. Let's go to the next slide. I recently got onto a website, truefacts.org. It's the leading edge work website. They're one of the magazines that you'll be seeing that's here today. And one of the things that they talk about on that website were 46 symptoms of Kundalini rising. Kundalini is an energy force that Eastern philosophers and mystics talk about that comes through the chakra system. And you'll enjoy these, I think, because you'll find that you'll have all experienced this. Have you noticed your concentration wavering a little bit? Are you having memory problems? Does your body seem to be hotter? Are your ears itching? Are you getting tingling in your ears, ringing in your ears? Do you feel like your head sometimes is being expanded? Do you get headaches? Do you sleeplessness? Any of those symptoms real? Those are all symptoms of Kundalini rising. I was astounded. I sat there and said, well, my clients think they're sick, and actually they're opening. And that's what the article said. Many of us are going through spiritual awakenings, and we don't know it. So take an assessment on that. If you're not sure if your Kundalini is rising or not, take my workshop. We'll connect to your higher self, and the higher self will tell you. Okay, we'll get it all cleared up, answer your questions. Let's go to the next slide here. Now, I like to promote books to people as an educator. I want to tell you about a couple of processes that I have found in some of these books. One is called the MAP book, Medical Assistance Program. We're selling this at table 40, right straight in the back there. This is a $14.95 book that is the best investment in your health program I have ever seen. It teaches you to do a process called coning sessions, and it enables you to take care of some of your health problems using natural spirits and using working with the White Brotherhood. The White Brotherhood is not a racist group on this dimension. It's in a group of ascended masters, and they are serving the planet now. They're delightfully wonderful people to work with, and they are very intent on assisting people. So this book, this coning session, I've had things happen like I got food poisoning. They wiped out the food poisoning so I didn't have to go through 48 hours of misery. They've adjusted my spine. They've taken out headaches and colds for me. It's a wonderful process. You can use it on your animals. And I think it's the best security about health insurance problems that you have, a lot cheaper than your monthly health insurance. I'd mentioned Living with Joy. One of my favorite books that came out last year, and many of you have probably read by now, of course, is Conversations with God. So I brought it out here in March to sell to people. And we have it in the back. A bookstore here also has it. They now have book 2. I had an extraordinary experience after I read this book. You know, being raised as an agnostic, I wasn't sure I really had a relationship with God. So I channel through computers often, and I was channeling, and I thought, you know, if Donald Walsh can channel God, maybe I can. But of course, I had a little fear around it because I don't have a relation. I didn't think I had a relation. I didn't believe in God for a long time. So I get on the computer, and I go, okay, dear God, are you there? And, yes. And I said, am I forgiven for not believing in you in all these years? And he says, of course, my child. And I said, I have a question. I tell people when I clear their auras that they get a chance to know who they really are. And I want to know if that's really true. And the response comes back through the computer. Well, why would you tell anybody something that wasn't true? Duh, I wouldn't. I thought, oh, okay, so I guess I'm getting this. So I want you to expand your consciousness and get into the miracle of what you're capable of doing. One of the taps we did with the Aqaba was to get rid of, we tap out the negative or what you don't want. We tapped out limited thinking. Now, most of you are unlimited thinkers in this room, I'm sure, but you may need a little help to stretch that a little further. This is a process we'll teach you how to do so that you can expand your consciousness and become more aware. In addition, I want you to know that the MAP team, the White Brotherhood, were the people that taught me how to clear some of the other aspects of the aura called entities. Entities are, in my theory, species that are coming in from other dimensions or other, what I call densities rather than dimensions, because we've used those terms differently. And as a computer trainer, what I discovered is that our computers are conduits for this kind of attachment. That means that we need to screen our machines, and it's very simple to do this. And I have a couple of papers in the back, one on Aurapathy and one on Aqaba. They're $2 a piece. You can get a copy and have this information to take home with you. But when you screen a machine, what you're doing is you're visualizing like a cube of blue light, sky blue light, beautiful, you know, rich, beautiful sky blue, and make it about 12 inches thick. And then imagine it going all the way around the computer, around the monitor, the CPU, your keyboard, your mouse, everything. Because once screened, it will stay screened, and you will not get the radiation effects from it. I used to do computer training, and at the end of the day, towards 2 hours before the end of class, the students are all dead in the water. They're just so tired and so messed up. And when I began to realize that I should screen these computers, I did the classroom, and thereafter, in the late afternoon, my students were fine. They were doing a whole lot better. To show you some of the power of what we're talking about here, I had a friend move down to California. She was working in getting a small business development center open. This is a strange story. This woman, by the way, has an MBA and a PhD in quantum physics and spirituality. And she will attest to what I'm about to tell you. When they went in to this, set up this lab of computer equipment, all this donated stuff, one day everything went haywire. Printers, keyboards locking up, papers flying from these Xerox machines, the phones weren't working. She calls me up in Oregon and says, I think you need to clear this place. I don't understand what's going on here. I didn't recognize who it was because the static on the phone was so bad. It took me about 10 minutes into the conversation. And I said, well, I'll have to call you back, and because I had to go pick up my daughter. So I cleared it from there, not knowing if it was going to do any good. Went and picked up my daughter, came home. My friend called me back. She said, everything's fine. Everything's working. She said, you wouldn't have believed it. She said the computer screens were flipping out, keyboards locking up, printers were printing black pages. I mean, everything was just in chaos. She said, we were all looking at this whirlwind going on in here. She says, I want to tell you the most interesting thing. In this warehouse, the building, the office next door is now vacant, but it has a medical sign that's sitting down on the floor out there. It's some kind of medical lab. And she says, on the other side, there's a forensic laboratory. Guess who hangs out in forensic laboratories? Earthbound spirits. So when I cleared her center, I cleared the whole building of all the earthbound spirits, released them to the light in light and love and peace, and sent them where they belonged. And everything shifted. Well, I had to stay out of my ego on this one because I'm in Beaverton, Oregon, and this was down in the Bay Area in California. 600 miles away, this energy was taking effect. Isn't that fun? Does that blow your mind? Blew mine, I'll tell you. But I've had a lot of experiences like that, and I think you all need to open up to those kinds of miracles. When I was here in April, I had so much fun working with a lot of different people. I had done a 2-week tour over the Midwest, and I have to tell you, I'm not the healer here. You got to get that. I'm just the vehicle. The energy comes through me. And I saw miracle after miracle happen on this trip, and it was like I stepped aside and God took over, and it was so fun, so wonderful. I want to tell you about a man. It was at the Global Sciences meeting. He comes up. A lot of people got in line to talk to me after my presentation. He comes up to me, this poor man, probably 65, 70 years old. I don't even know his name. I was just, out to help some people real quickly. And he comes up to me. He's got, his eyes are real sunken and very, very red around the edges. He looks like he's just in a whole lot of pain. And he says to me, I have had a headache my entire life. And I looked at him, and all of a sudden I got this image or message in my head that he had a dark force energy inside him. And this is another process that I do, but I can't teach people to do. I get guided to do with various very specific healers. Templars, Mary, if you're here. Knights Templars can be taught to do this process. And so I sat him down in the chair, pulled the energy out of his head, and then pulled the rest of it out of his feet, and then I went and washed my hands because I don't want this energy hanging around, and his headache went away. I didn't even get a chance to talk to him. One of my buddies sat and talked to him and found out that when he was born, he came in as a 10-pound baby, and his mother weighed 95 pounds. And the labor apparently was so intense, way back, 60, 70 years ago, they weren't interfering as much. The poor woman in such agony, her husband and the doctor didn't know what to do, so they got drunk. That's how they coped with it. And so I feel like when we go through some kind of a trauma or experience like that, we open ourselves up. And that's why it's so important to stay out of fear. So I want to leave you with a couple of messages about what happens spiritually. If you stay balanced, mentally, emotionally, and physically, stay in love instead of fear, once your aura is cleared, you can maintain its clearing because you are operating in integrity. And it's very interesting to me, there's one population in this country that I have found that do stay clear on a regular basis. And I know we heard some people talking about how terrible religion is. I'm not going to get into that debate. I'm not a theologian. This group that stays clear are Muslims. They pray 5 times a day. They go face Mecca, they're down on the floor, and they're doing their little prayers. They don't drink. Most of them will not smoke. And therefore, their auras stay pretty clear. I thought that was very interesting. The other group that stays very clear are children, unless they've experienced trauma. So let me talk to you about what causes an aura to open. 2 alcoholic drinks is enough to open an aura. Smoking, we are now discovering, this was recent, that's not in my paper, attracts demon energy in. My mother had quit smoking for a while, then started again, got hideously depressed, called me up. She says, I don't know what's going on. This depression is so bad, I feel like the demons took over. My clients tell me every time. So I did a demon release on her, and she's much better. She still can't kick this nicotine habit. That's because the tobacco companies made her a true addict. She's been smoking 60 years. It's really a shame. But those are kind of the vulnerabilities of the aura. In addition to that, if you experience a trauma like a car accident, if you have surgery, that'll open your aura, and if you have a tremendous emotional upset, where you get very, very angry or you get very, very distressed at something that's happened in your life. All of those components will open an aura. I don't know of many people who've escaped those, at least one of those. So I can generally tell you that most people do need to have this kind of clearing. I also tell you in my practice, I don't see my clients more than once, usually. This is not long-term therapy for most. I would say once the aura is clear, people move on in their lives. Sometimes the transformation is absolutely miraculous, and in other cases, it's very, very subtle. I have never had anybody call me back and said it didn't work. I also will tell you that I think, which is really wonderful part of this work, is that I can teach you how to clear your own auras, and I can teach other healers how to do this work, and that's what I'm doing now is I'm starting to certify Aurapathy healers. I'd like to, in the last 5 minutes, just talk about a few things we're going to do in the workshop. The workshop, I again will teach you how to clear your own aura. I will clear the auras in the room. I'm going to teach you how to connect with your human pendulum. Depending on how many of you are in there, we'll do some spot checks on various other things, because the aura clearing will do earthbound spirits and entities in a group, but I may not have time to check for negative vortexes and other things we're working on. In addition, then, we'll teach you how to work with your human pendulum, and then I'll start you on the basic steps of Akaba and teach you the introduction to that. For those of you who live here in the local area or who want to hang around, on Wednesday we're going to do a full-day workshop up in Greeley. I had made some friends here, and they wanted to say, come back, we want to have a class here. So on Wednesday we're going to do a 9 to 5 workshop in Greeley. You can sign up at our table at table 40. The cost for the whole day is $50, and we're going to have a lot of fun because we'll go through, again, the rigors of this. We'll teach you some other ways you can clear auras. And once you get into learning how to do this kind of work, then you can do planetary work, which a lot of spiritual people will tell you they do. I regularly clear Mother Earth. I clear buildings before I come into them. I clear the president. And I also do Bill to help her out. I do, and this is fun. You can get into this work. You send out that thought energy. It's real positive. Let me just show you a short story. In my worst brain-injured state, I'm sitting on my couch meditating one morning, heard about North Korea's president was amassing nuclear arms. And so in my meditation that day, I decided I would send this leader light and love and peace. I didn't clear his aura. I didn't know how to do it yet. But I sent him love, light, and wisdom. The strangest thing happened. 2 weeks later, he had the good graces to die. I couldn't believe it. Wow, this is incredible. And then his son took over and dismantled all the nuclear armaments that they were starting to amass at that stage. Now, is that the power of positive thinking? I mean, I can't tell you I can take credit for this, but wasn't that an interesting coincidence, huh? If you believe in coincidences anymore? Okay? I want you to think about what your thought energies are, you know? Get out of this negative stuff of bad, 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 and start saying, okay, I'm going to send light and love to these people. If you've ever driven with a person who's a type A personality, you see them on the freeway, they're going, look at that guy, he cut in, and honking the horn, you know, all that stuff. Go to New York City, the cab drivers, all that, you know, you see that? Well, they're putting all this negative energy out there. Give yourself another perspective. Guy cuts in front of you, go, hey, must be in a hurry. Let's send him light and love, protect him so he doesn't hurt himself or anybody else. Let's share our love. We have great capacity for loving people. Can we do that? I think we can. I think we're great people. We can do that. So we have the workshop whenever I get scheduled, and then we'll have the workshop on Wednesday. We have books back there, and I want to show you one real quick message. The White Brotherhood gave me, I'm doing Merkaba work. How many of you have heard of Merkaba ascensions? You're doing that? Okay. If you ask a White Brotherhood master to come with you, it's really fun because they'll take you, they can take you places. And one of the visions they took me on was to the Temple of Love. I thought this was real appropriate. You know who I met there? Adonis, God of love. There he is, standing there. Boy, was he handsome, let me tell you. So they take you to this temple, and you go in, and the guide who took me is Father Gregorio Alfonso is his name, and he took me into this temple and invited me to drink this water, and it was the purest, clearest water I've ever tasted in my life. It was so wonderful. And they take me up on the steps of the temple and have me lie down. They hold my hands, and all of a sudden, this love energy hit me like I have never experienced before. It's the reconnection to our divine source. It was so incredible. When I came out of it, Alfonso says, "We have a message for you. We want you to teach this." So I created 2 tapes in the back. For those of you who want to learn how to meditate, there was one called a white light meditation, and the other one is the tape, Temple of Love. It will take you to the temple, and you can meet Adonis. It's really neat. $9 for the tapes. You've been a great audience. I really enjoyed speaking to you. Have a wonderful time at this conference, as I am, and I'll hope to talk to you later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dorothy. Her workshop will be Monday, one of those times, either morning or afternoon. We haven't got that quite figured out yet. Be back. I forgot to mention that distilled water is provided by one of our members over here on the corner, or back over there. If you would like some clean, pure distilled water, it's over there at all times. So help